Good morning. It's Wednesday, June 19th. And I was going through a bunch of papers that I had set aside, and I came across this document, really an article, and it's sort of an advertisement. And the question that it asked was, do you know the difference between a living trust, a living will, and an ordinary will? And I remembered that I had put this article aside because I had to take care of these things. I had to create a living trust, a living will, and an ordinary will. So it's important that you do this if you feel it's necessary. And most of us have done this thing already, but this is a reminder. We have reached a certain age in our life where we have to prepare paperwork for the future. And that future exists not for you necessarily, but for your children and your grandchildren and any other important relative that you want to see taken care of after you're gone. So I just want to run down these documents so that you understand what they are. And every American should probably have one of these documents. So I'll start with the first one. What is a living trust? You can put property into a living trust while you are still alive. And when you die, the property automatically goes to your heirs without going through the probate court, which can take a very long time. And if you haven't done that, it also can cost, it can be very time consuming and it could be expensive. And you can revoke. The interesting thing is you can revoke a living trust at any time if you change your mind. So in my mind, this is a very simple document to put together, I think. Maybe it might take you a little time to figure out everything that you want to put into this thing, but it's not going to cost you a lot of money, and you're protecting yourself. And it doesn't require any legal advice either. It could probably be like a letter that you write. So everybody should put together some form of living trust. Now, the second item on the list is something that's called a living will. And that's different than just a plain ordinary will. So a living will is a legally binding document that dictates your wishes when you are close to leaving this world permanently. It says that you are not to be kept alive by artificial life support systems in the event of a terminal illness. Now this is being put together to limit the possibility of very expensive treatments that would keep you alive and drain all your resources into medical bills instead of leaving that money behind for your children and your grandchildren or your wife and your mother-in-law, whomever you want to leave the money for. If you have a living will, you can avoid losing that money for expensive medical care that will not keep you alive and healthy. It might keep you alive, but you won't be healthy. So by limiting treatment, a living will sets limits on hospital bills, which, as I said before, can drain you and even edge out. It could even wipe out your assets so that there is little left behind for your wife and your children. So everybody really needs a living will when you look at it that way. Otherwise, you could get sucked into some terrible medical expenses that are not going to really do anything for you except keep you alive in miserable condition for maybe a couple of months, maybe even a year or two. So you have to decide whether you're willing to go ahead with that situation. Okay? Now, the third and last item on this list is the will. Now, what is a will? The will is a legal document that dictates how your property is to be distributed after your death. Now, it may also designate guardians for your children if they're young, and your will must pass through something called probate court before your estate can be distributed to your heirs. So I guess that's to protect you in some way, shape, or form. Probably although there to make the lawyers a few extra bucks. So, if you have a wife and children, or a husband and children, you can decide who's going to get what, or you can leave everything to your wife, or your husband, as the case may be, and let them decide how they want to distribute the wealth when they pass on. So, writing a will is a complicated process, I think, because you're trying to make everything fair and square, and I think that takes a lot of thought. So I wouldn't rush into the creation of these documents necessarily without thinking about what should you really want to end up with. But it would be good to get started on the project if you haven't already. So it's really a very simple process. You can order these 3 documents online. You can look for a living trust kit, and they cost about $20 online. And a living will kit, you can get some of them for nothing. So if you just type in living will kit or living trust online, you'll get information on how to get these things at reasonable prices. And the same goes for a will kit also. So if you haven't taken care of this and you feel like you want to do it yourself, it's not going to cost you a lot of money to give it a shot, because if you go to an attorney, they're going to charge you a couple $1,000s to do this work. And I don't know that they can produce anything better than you can produce by yourself. So that's my little thought for today. And I hope it comes at a good time for everybody. And if you've already taken care of this, good for you. So have a great day, and I'll see you in the morning. Bye.